Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. I had full intentions of like printing this and putting it behind me in the size that Baylor does, but it turns out that's a benefit of tuition because Staples wanted to charge me like $99. So here we are. We're doing a collective case study examining the factors and theory behind the steady growth of homeschooling, and I'm going to zoom in on each window for you, I think. Yes. Okay, so when I set out to do this topic and this study and started diving into the literature, it was the first thing I noticed was right away it was almost all quantitative. A lot of surveys, a lot of just general prioritizing of these individual decision making factors to homeschool. So there might be a government study that said, the top reason people decide to homeschool is religion, then followed by environment at public schools. There was really no attention to the complexity of a decision to homeschool, the reasons why maybe they were leaving traditional public schooling, and just scholars weren't really super incentivized if they were already in the public school environment and scholarly research to study and explore this phenomenon. And that is ultimately why I decided to study it. So in the literature review, three main areas: homeschooling in America, broad sweep, definition, and history. There's really two schools of thought. The first is that you homeschool by taking public school curriculum and doing it just in the home, but the same curriculum, same instruction methods. And the second, which you'll see a little bit in the second piece of the literature review, is this notion of unschooling, which is like a radical departure from traditional public school education, really a lot of like homestead on your own decisions. I study the popularity growth, demographics, the barriers to homeschooling, the different models and the hybrid approaches. And then I get into educational value systems. This notion of parental worldviews, their authority, their desire to exude control over their environment, and how maybe the government comes into play with the democracy in education, and some of how those things impact their overall decision towards education and what they might be predispositioned to. This notion of unschooling, what their role is going to be and how they perceive it. And then innovation and global competitiveness and the shift of education needing to be more collaborative, less subject matter silos, and how homeschooling has had a play in that and will. And then lastly, I study each individual decision-making factor and the studies that have been done in depth, including touching on COVID-19, like I'm sure all of you are. The purpose is to understand the processes a young family goes through when deciding to homeschool, incorporating the behavior processes, the motivations, the factors that explain it, is seeking to actually construct a theory. So this started off as a grounded theory, and because of time and a few other reasons, we went with this collective case study, which is a multiple case study, to see if we could still put together, based on these interconnected factors, these processes and motivations, a theory as to why parents, generalizing why parents decide to homeschool. Just getting that deeper understanding and then ultimately having a long-term impact for collaboration at the public school level and really making sure that this is just well represented in the overarching literature and education. The central research question is, how do parents' lived experiences explain the decisions of young families to homeschool? A young family is defined as under the age of 5 who have yet to formally enroll in education. So a lot of studies are retrospective. They're answering questions as to why they chose to homeschool after the fact. This study is real time, getting at the heart of the decision-making process. And so what are the barriers that families are facing? What factors influence their decision and how do they interconnect? Sorry, I don't know why that's not a timer. What theories align with their behaviors and their motivations, and then ultimately, what is the impact of COVID? Conceptual framework. 3 pieces, decision-making theories, bottom right corner. The first is dual system theory, which is Daniel Kahneman. It says on one hand, you have fast, impulsive decisions. On the second, you make slow, methodological decisions that require research. I want to look at these individual decision-making factors in this second box. And does each one have a predisposition towards a fast or a slow decision? How do all of them roll up into that. And then cognitive reflection is an assessment on someone's preference for time and risk. There's a series of 3 questions that play into that. And then rational choice theory is sort of the rubric between the two that helps roll all 3 into understanding these decision-making factors. And then overarching on top of all of this is that central research question, is the sub-questions, really making sure that we have congruency throughout the whole thing. Researcher perspective, if you guys have had class with me before, you know and have heard of NetEDU. It's the reason why I'm in this program. It's my startup business. It's a on-demand homeschool marketplace that aims to connect teachers that have attritioned out of the profession for various reasons with parents who want to homeschool but can't. We know from studies that up to 7% of parents today want to homeschool but face different barriers or different reasons why they choose not to. We want to fix that. It's well addressed in my researcher positionality, as well as our own family desire to go down this route. And so how are we doing it? I keep saying we as if, I have a massive team. It is just myself and Dr. Blevins and my peer working group. But it's a qualitative collective case study, multiple case study with 10 families under the age of 5 who have, again, yet to formally enroll. It's a snowball criterion sampling method. So I'm going to be using a lot of mom groups and other social media communities with a request for participation. There's a criteria that says, they must already be thinking about homeschool, but haven't formally started the research process yet, to really make sure that all of the participants are on sort of that level playing field. And then we do 2 interviews, one in the very beginning as they're starting that formal research process, as they're starting to get ready to discuss it with their spouse. Going into the spring is ideal because it's generally a 6 to 7 month period, and that'll put us right at fall enrollment. So if it's a 3 or 4-year-old before pre-K, before kindergarten, that's when we're trying to capture it. And then there will be self-reflections and journaling throughout, as they have an emergent conversation or something that they really want to capture before the last interview. When they've made the decision, we'll be able to pull those themes out as well. A big part of collective case study is the individual analysis, the within case, and then a cross case analysis, doing all of the pattern matching, doing the coding, the thematic analysis, and then I'm also exploring a explanation building approach, but we're not quite there yet. So these are the end references, and thank you for sticking it out and watching.